Hello, everyone. This is Alexandra Gargano,
And Kayla Weiner.
and we will be presenting our final project presentation to all of you today.
The unit, Our Changing Landscape, is fitted for a second grade social studies ELL classroom. Throughout this unit, students will explore the relationship of the physical world around us, including the geographical location and the physical features of a specific location. Students will utilize their background knowledge of map skills to help them persevere through this unit. Additionally, students will explore natural resources, how and why we modify the landscape, and the impacts those modifications can have on landforms, water, and living things. The learners for this unit are second grade English language learners. The instruction of this unit will be delivered through a sheltered language model, an approach to teaching English language learners that integrates not only language, but their grade level content. All students that we will be teaching come from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, including students from Mexico, Russia, Ukraine, India, and South Korea. Each learner has varying levels of English language proficiency, ranging from entering, which is the lowest, to reaching, which is the highest, according to the WIDA Consortium standards. As elementary teachers of students with diverse backgrounds, we are taking into account that students do not have an understanding of the landscape features around them in their current location. Based on their current community, we as a result are aimed to design a geography-based unit where students have the opportunity to explore this topic. With the use of technology, we anticipate an increase of student interest, engagement, and understanding of their current location and how their environment shapes their everyday lives. Prior to this lesson, students will have come with knowledge and background on map skills, the compass rose, and how to identify a map key legend and its features.
So in this instructional unit, we have various objectives that we are expecting our students to meet. And you will see that every one of our 6 objectives ends with our students hopefully being able to show these skills with 95% accuracy. Initially, we want our students to be able to identify natural and human-made features of landscapes, and they will be doing this using print maps as well as Google Earth. We also want our students to be able to really compare landscapes from the past and also the present. And we want them to be able to describe those changes and what has occurred over time. Additionally, we are hoping that our students are able to really interpret a state map in order to begin to identify different landforms and bodies of water in Illinois using photographs and Google Earth. Additionally, our students will be able to identify a natural resource, and they will be explaining how people use that natural resource in their everyday life and where that natural resource comes from. Students will also, towards the end of the unit, identify a specific place, and they will evaluate different images of the place from different time periods. They will also be making inferences as to how and why the landscape has changed over time. And additionally, they will be choosing a location. They will be describing it, and they will also be predicting what that area will look like in 200 years. When we think of this instructional unit, we really have to think about the teaching and learning strategy that we are providing our students with. And through Brewer's Thinker Tool strategy, this has been a great model to apply to our unit of study. And there are 4 steps in this strategy: motivate, model evolution, formalization, and transfer. When we think about step 1, motivation, in this first phase, this is where students are introduced to a phenomenon and they're asked to make predictions about the topic. We see this in our day 1 and day 2 of our unit design when students are asked to answer the question, how can we respond to our changing landscapes? This is really that inquiry question that gets students thinking about what they're going to study the entire week. Step 2 is the model evolution phase. This is where learners ideally will work together in pairs and groups to solve problems and conduct research on a topic. In our unit design, students are participating in this phase on day 3, and this is where learners begin to utilize Google Earth to explore landforms and bodies of water in Illinois. They will also be working collaboratively in this phase to identify these different landforms and bodies of water. Step 3 is formalization, and this is where students begin to focus their collaborative ideas and they really start to explain and justify their thinking and reasoning. We see this come into fruition in day 4 of our unit design. And this is where students hone in on the topic of natural resources and they start to take a closer look into how natural resources are transformed into the things that they need in their everyday lives. Finally, step 4 is transfer. And this is where learners must apply what they have learned to real world situations. And we see the transfer phase in day 5 of our instructional unit. This is where students are choosing a location. They're using Google Earth as a visualization tool to complete research on the location's current state. And then they're also making predictions of what its features will look like 200 years from now.
The main technology used will be Google Earth. This program will be used as a visualization tool to help students become exposed to real-life images of various landforms, bodies of water, natural resources, and other specific locations in both Illinois and around the world. We will be utilizing the images provided in Google Earth as well as the aerial view, 2D and 3D navigation systems to see a first-hand experience of various landforms, bodies of water, and natural resources. Students will also use the Google Earth time-lapse interactive web experience, which is a collection of satellite images that have been taken over a long period of time and turned into a video. This will help students to better compare and contrast specific locations that they will research on day 5. Our secondary technology platform is Seesaw. We will go into the differentiated tools Seesaw offers through our mixed abilities slide later on in the slideshow. However, Seesaw is an instructional platform that allows for teachers to differentiate instruction by posting various versions. It also allows students to complete their activity using different tools, which we will discuss later. Other technology resources that we'll be using are 2 different videos. One, Chicago, A Journey Through Time, which will allow students to be able to see how a specific location has evolved over a course of time. And 2, Exploring Natural Resources. What are natural resources? That video will allow students to be able to see how natural resources affect their everyday lives. Students will also be using one-to-one Chromebooks to help navigate Google Earth as well as complete their Seesaw activities.
So as we get into this instructional unit, we want to also think about the relative advantage or the value added from our technology tools. By using Google Earth, students can really visualize and they can interact with real life images of specific landforms and bodies of water. And throughout utilization of Google Earth, students can use 2D, 3D, and aerial views to really gain just a better understanding of the landscape that they are researching and how it has changed or how it will change in the future. In addition, they can also look at this location's surroundings, its terrain, its animal habitat. And something that's really important is that this visualization tool, it really allows students to really think about how they weren't able to see this image in a real life way. And now they're able to look inside that landform, that body of water, or that specific place that they are currently researching. And without this tool, that would not have been able to happen in their classroom.
Next, a day-to-day description. So this slide shows you an overview of what days 1 through 3 look like. On the first 2 days, students will participate in a unit launch. On day 1, students will draw a specific outdoor space in their community and will describe its physical features on the Now section of the Our Landscape handout. Students will be encouraged to envision their favorite or one specific location and be able to draw that location. The goal here is to draw students' attention in so that they can recall their favorite place to be. On this day, students will turn and talk with peers as well as discuss through a whole group as to what specific location they drew and how they described it. On day 2, students will watch a video that shows the physical transformation of Chicago over time. We chose Chicago because it is a specific location to them and very relevant. Students will predict how their chosen area will look in 200 years on the long ago section of the Our Landscape handout, and which we will show you later in this slideshow. Students will be invited to discuss with peers as well as through the whole group about their comparisons from their initial drawing from day 1 to their current drawing on day 2. Lastly, on day 3, students will identify geographic features, including those in Illinois. They will then use Google Earth in conjunction to their state map handout to identify landforms and bodies of water. Students will have time to first self-discover using Google Earth and its navigation tools. Then they will be able to work with a group to fill out their state map handout on Seesaw. Day 4 and 5 is another overview on this slideshow. On day 4, students will learn about natural resources through a video. Then they will use Google Earth and a Seesaw activity to identify one natural resource and how it affects their everyday life. Emphasis on how it affects their life. We want this to be an engaging experience for EL students to be able to identify something that they use every day in their current location. On day 5, students will complete their summative assessment. This summative assessment will be later on discussed on the last slide of our slideshow. However, it is similar to day 1, except students will be in control of their own ideas. Instead of students completing this activity in 2 days, students will have the opportunity to show their mastery of content in 1 day and be able to use one specific location and then later infer what that location will look like in 200 years from now. We have several opportunities to support mixed ability students. This unit plan prevents several modifications that can be made to accommodate mixed ability situations, first being text-to-speech and voice instructions, which are 2 accommodations that will be present through Seesaw. Students can use a text-to-speech option to support their responses on Seesaw, especially for ELs where writing becomes a barrier for students to be able to show what they know. So we're hoping that students use this feature to be able to clearly communicate their understanding without any barriers. In addition to voice instructions, the teacher can customize voice instructions and voice labels on Seesaw, and students can listen to or repeat these instructions as many times as they desire. 2 other differentiation options that support the videos that we'll be playing are 1, video speed. The educational videos that we show can be adjusted to play slower. This is especially useful for EL students who may need to translate in their head in their native language. In addition to video speed, closed captions will also be an option to support our EL students. The closed captions can assist in language development by connecting the text to the oral verbiage. This will especially help students who are bridging English and reaching their next level of English proficiency. We also have 2 other differentiating options, such as seating arrangements. Students can use flexible seating arrangements to assess the images or videos at larger. For example, students that might have vision or hearing impairments, as well as assigning differentiating versions of an assignment. This goes along with Seesaw. Students can be assigned a differentiated version of the activity. For example, a student that's entering English may need a version of the handout that supports their learning with more visuals, diagrams, or perhaps more sentence frames, whereas a student that is bridging or reaching English may need a more advanced version. However, all of these accommodations are not watering down the content, but allowing the students to access the content in a supportive way that fits their English language needs.
In terms of the student handouts that students will be able to utilize in our instructional unit, this is an example of the student handout called Our Landscape. And this handout will be used on day 1, 2, and also 5 of the unit. As you can see, this is where students pick a particular location, and in the top box, they draw what they believe that location looks like today. And we really want to emphasize with them, including detail as much as they can of what they know of this place, what it looks like, and things of that nature. Then you can see at the bottom, this is where students use prediction skills to think about what did this landform look like? What did this location look like? What did this body of water look like long ago? So they're using their inferencing skills to help them along with the knowledge that they've acquired from our unit. Our second handout here is the state map of Illinois, and this handout will be used specifically on day 3 of the unit. This is where students will be taking a closer look into the natural resources of Illinois and where are these natural resources coming from, and also how are these natural resources used in their everyday lives. We want this to be very relevant for our students. And here we have an example of a sample student artifact. And this is a sample student artifact that could be created on day 1 and also day 2 of the instructional unit. As you can see, this student chose the Naperville, Illinois Riverwalk as their location. You can see in the today picture that they have shops, they have a library, they have many buildings, they have shrubbery, as well as cement pavement, and then the river itself as the body of water. And they did note that there are no fish in the water at this time. As you can see, then the student went back and they said that they were predicting what the Naperville Riverwalk looked like 200 years from now in 1823. And you can see that they noted there's less buildings, there's less shops. You might see a department store, you might see a horse-drawn carriage. There's more of the river that's actually visible or being used. And you do see also that there are more fish in the river. As you can see, this shows an accurate depiction of the time that has passed between these two photographs. Here, this is the online resource that was implemented as a shared Google document that would be shared with every student in the course. And in this page, you can see a list of learning objectives, also the 2 student handouts that I just shared with you, as well as the sample student product. And there are also useful resources at the end of the content page that will be used in the unit. As we click into this document, you can see that there's an introduction, and it tells the students that this document provides helpful resources for this unit. It is linked, so students are able to click and it will bookmark them to the specific place that they're looking for. But as you can see, there are learning objectives included, the 2 student handouts that I have mentioned, that sample introductory product. And then there are 2 links to Google Earth and Seesaw, because those are the 2 resources that students will be utilizing in this unit. In terms of the conceptual categorization, we shared that this instructional unit is an example of augmentation. And we believe this because the instruction is augmented in the way that students are really using Google Earth to complete their research on the changing landscapes over different periods of time. And we shared that this really modifies the lesson and it gives students a visualization tool in order to really look inside the place or the landform or the body of water that is being researched. And we shared that this would not be possible without utilizing this Google Earth technology, which is why we believe it is an example of augmentation.
To assess student learning of content, data will be collected through formative data from each day's various activities through Google Earth in conjunction to Seesaw. These formative assessments include peer-to-peer interactions, participation, and those individual performance activities as mentioned before. Teachers will evaluate student learning of content and revisit misconceptions to individual students, small group, or whole group if necessary prior to the summative assessment. Lastly, the final day of the unit includes the summative assessment, day 5. The summative assessment will assess students' ability to identify a specific place, evaluate print images of the place in different time periods, and make inferences as to how and why that landscape has changed over time. In conjunction with a visualization simulator such as Google Earth and a technology platform with those supportive EL-friendly features such as Seesaw, the teachers will be able to identify the type of mastery students are demonstrating.
Thank you so much for listening to our presentation. We are really looking forward to sharing this with all of you, and we are also looking forward to hearing your presentations as well.